Back on Turks and Jerks, time to do our worst of the weekend, also known as jerks. Ben, spell that for us.
JURKS.
Very
Jerks.
good.
Turks and jerks.
They get it. They get it now. They get it. JR, would you like to start with the worst of the weekend?
Well, you know, in a way, it's seemingly surprising, but it's going to be Russell Wilson, maybe the coaching staff, maybe the doctors, anybody who with the Seattle Seahawks who thinks that. Well, first off, the Rams beat them 9-3. No one can score a touchdown in the NFL. But my Rams are now 1-1, home opener.
The whole division is 1-1. It's a 14-game season in the NFC West.
I predicted 16-0, but let's go 15-1. So, I mean, the bottom line is this team still doesn't look that great, mine. But you get a win, right? Home opener for the Rams. Now, first of all, I can stop hearing the stupid-ass stat. You know, the Los Angeles Rams haven't scored a touchdown since 1994. You know why? Because they weren't in Los Angeles for fucking 20. I'm sorry.
It's still funny.
It's still true.
It's just so ridiculous.
The Ram defense is good. You know, you forget they gave up 28 points, 21 points during the competitive portion of the game to the Niners the week before. But the Niners had short field. I mean, the Ram offense just put the defense in a very difficult situation. Actually, Carlos Hyde looked pretty good running the ball. Gabbert's numbers were unimpressive. In week one. So I just mean that week one was not a real test of the quality of the Ram defense. As it happens, maybe neither was this because of Wilson's injury. The Seahawks have now played 2 games. They've scored 1 touchdown, and that touchdown came in the 60th minute against the Dolphins in week one. The Dolphins, who did not look good and got taken apart on the first 4 drives of the game by the Patriots and Garoppolo. So we don't know. Maybe the Seahawks are going to win most of these low-scoring games and they'll end the year 10-6 or 11-5, or maybe they're fairly ordinary. The NFL has some crazy rules about changing uniforms. So the Rams are going to wear white apparently at home. They wore the throwback uniforms last week. They're going to wear them one other time apparently this year. Like, just wear them every game.
Yeah, they look
like the throwbacks. That's the Rams. It's Los Angeles. They look great. The other uniforms are okay because the Rams always have okay uniforms, but they've taken all the joy of being the Rams out of it. Just wear those.
Those were the St. Louis Rams.
What's the league going to do? Fine you? Right? You're building a $4 billion stadium in Inglewood. Just pay it, man. Like, just wear those uniforms. Like
that extra amount of money.
Make us excited.
Does not want to pay.
Like, if you're not going to score a touchdown all season, as appears to be the case, for the love of God, look good kicking field goals. You know, that would be my message to the Rams.
Small thing, I know you're going to mention this, but small thing also. I watched the press conference with Russell Wilson about the whole thing, at least with his ankle, and beforehand and after, and he's like, you know, I'm not, he didn't say weak or soft, but he used a term like that. I mean, I'm not going to go in the corner and whine about an ankle. Or you're going to whine about a loss where you can't score a touchdown in the whole game against the Rams? I mean, who cares? Like, there's this mentality sometimes with football guys, like, I'm not weak. I'm going to play off this broken leg anyway. But you're going to play badly off of that broken leg.
A couple things real quick about the Rams before we move on, because Jeff Fisher unquestionably engaged in some 7-9 bullshit.
Will he ever not?
First of all, driving in a 9-3 game passing up an opportunity to punting on 4th down. I got it. This is not the Patriot offense. Like, his decisions on short 4th downs are different than Patriot decisions.
Why?
Because Case Keenum is your quarterback and not someone great like Jimmy Garoppolo, right? But in general, again, an opportunity, I thought, late in the game to pick up some yards to make it 12-3, which would have won the game, as opposed to keeping it 9-3, where the Rams were terribly in danger then of the Seahawks scoring on that last drive, especially after the first. I mean, look, they got lucky. Guy fumbled.
Absolutely.
Right? Just got lucky.
Barely fumbled.
No, the Seahawks might not have barely fumbled, and the Seahawks might not have scored on that drive anyway. But and then when it was 2nd and 6 before that last drive, as we got near the 2-minute warning, you weren't really going to get past the 2-minute warning. That was going to stop the clock, and the Seahawks had a timeout left. So the Rams ran it on 2nd and 6. When the Seahawks knew they were going to run it, they ended up losing yards. Like, that's the time for a play action and to move that guy around, let Case Keenum try and pick up 6 yards or even 5 yards so that you might get it down on 3rd down. And then game's over and you win. But because then they ended up throwing on 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 10 anyway. So if you're willing to throw on 3rd and 10, you got to be willing to throw on 2nd and 6 and win the game. Like, you're up 9-3, you're playing the Seahawks. Win the game. Win the game. So my jerk of the week is the Detroit Lions. up what 15-3 at home against the Tennessee Titans. I like the Titans this year. I have them in a bet over 5.5, so wins are valuable. I mean, I don't like them; they're bad, but I think they're not horrible, right? I mean, I think they might win 6 or 7.
Did you do the season long over on this?
Yeah, I do a widespread bet with 4 other guys.
Did you take the over on Tennessee?
One of my 3 teams is the over on Tennessee. I have the over on Tennessee, I have the over on the Chiefs, and I have the over on the Ravens.
Ooh, very exciting.
But the Lions had, and apparently there weren't even bad calls. There's one they objected to.
Right.
Where they called offensive pass interference on Eric Ebron, took back a touchdown. They had 3 touchdowns, the Lions did call back by penalties. 3 in a game they lost by 1 point. They were penalized 17 times for 138 yards. 17 penalties for what? So Lions, Dan Keston holds up. Tennessee was penalized 12 times for 83 yards. So there were 221 yards worth of penalties on 29 penalties in that game. I can't believe I didn't watch that whole game. It sounds great. So 3 touchdowns called back and 221 yards with penalties. Lions 17 penalties. Of course they lost that game. And then you got Jim Caldwell, who seems like the coach of a team that gets penalized 17 times only because Norv Turner is no longer a head coach in the league. A combination of undisciplined and foolishness and not paying attention. They're at home. Is the noise a factor? They're playing at home. How do you have 17 penalties for 138 yards? Then up 9-3 in the second quarter of this game. He's in a league that is recognizing the value of going for it. An offense that looked fantastic in week 1 against the Colts, and was able to move the ball here. Has a terrific back out of the backfield in Riddick. Had Abdullah still in the game at that point.
That's right.
Has a talented tight end in Ebron and competent wide receivers in Golden Tate, who had 1 catch or 2 catches. That was a good start this week. I'm done with Golden Tate. And Marvin Jones, who actually went over 100 yards in the game. So you have weapons. I got it. You don't have Calvin Johnson anymore, but you have weapons on this team. 4th and 3 at the Tennessee 39 in the second quarter, up 9-3. He punted.
Do you want to see that drive, Ben?
What's the point of the punt? Yeah, you have that drive?
We do. We have the drive. If you take a look, because this is what I find so amazing about it, is it's not like they got the ball around the 50 and had 3 plays and they were out. They were putting together some solid first downs. And if you zoom in on the last series where they started at the Tennessee 46, the next card, I mean, they're at the 39. They're at the 39 yard line.
So I just mean, look, and I got it. They didn't kick it in the end zone, so you didn't know you netted 32 yards. But there's some chance you're only going to net 20 yards on that punt.
Sometimes
right?
less.
Right? I mean, there's a good chance you punt into the end zone. And then, great, you got 19 yards. You can stop the other team even if you fail to get it, but you'll probably get 3 yards. You have a good quarterback. You have talented backs out of the backfield. You have a good tight end. You got competent NFL wide receivers. It's just the league is changing, Jim Caldwell. You keep the ball. You don't voluntarily turn it over. Remember this. If that had been 3rd and 3 and Stafford had tried to throw a deep out to Golden Tate, and a Titan defensive back had stepped in and picked it off and got his feet down before going out of bounds at the 7, how would we have reacted? What would the Titans have done? High fives! Woo! Turnover! Game-changing moment. Instead, you wait 1 play and you just do it on purpose. It does not make sense. If it's 4th and 13, punt. 4th and 8 at the 45. Punt. I got it. 4th and 3, you're inside the 40. Look, I think it should change inside the 50. But inside the 40, it's a no-brainer. Go. You know what, Jim?
I'm going to go back to the Vikings and the Packers Sunday night game because Trey Waynes, another young, inexperienced player who looked scared guarding Devontae Adams. Not necessarily the most intimidating receiver in the game. Had 3 penalties called against him and did a better job of keeping Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in the game than Aaron Rodgers and the Packers themselves. However,
that one in the end zone, though, would have been a touchdown.
That's true.
Yeah.
And what I find amazing is that when you look back on it and you watch the play where he salvaged his terrible game by intercepting the pass and a surprisingly underthrown ball by Aaron Rodgers, in which Adams there was pressure, but with Adams, who made a great cut for a slant route and then opted to go back towards the sideline. I'm sure that's how the route was drawn up. He would have been, Trey Waynes, more than beat, he would have been on his ass. He literally fell back into coverage due to luck and then had the wherewithal to pick off the pass.
Yeah.
I'm picking on Trey Waynes pretty much like how Aaron Rodgers picked on him the entire night.
Yeah,
out of Michigan, and again, this is a young, I think he's a rookie out of Michigan State who, by the way, one quick note on college football, thankful to Michigan State for once again proving that Notre Dame is the biggest joke for ever being ranked this season in college football. They got beat. However, you look at that game, 3 penalties. I was shocked. You can pick Aaron Rodgers as the jerk of the week. You can also technically pick the Packers' offensive line, who did nothing in terms of helping him.
Yeah.
And
the Viking defense, 5 sacks, by the way.
They did. They played great. And what I find frustrating is, again, watching the Packers run so many plays with Eddie Lacy and James Starks when you have Aaron Rodgers as a QB, even though your offensive line wasn't showing up. Once again, fire Mike McCarthy.
But the Vikings might be really good.
They could be. They absolutely could. Stephon Diggs, last thing, if you will, on pace exactly with Randy Moss's first few games as a first and second season.
Is that right?
Yes, on pace. I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest receivers of all time, but Stephon Diggs, he hauled in some Randy Moss-esque catches.
We got to go, but Jason's too young for this. Do you still find it weird that their wide receivers' numbers aren't in the 80s anymore and they're all like number 14? It's still, I still feel like I'm watching a high school game.
It's so weird that I look at it. There were
all these guys,
Odell.
I was watching the Washington game. I'm not going to say the name. I was watching that game, and your former team, but the speedster wide receiver,
Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun is. I looked up and I was like, oh, look how fast Deshaun is. I was like, man, he's wearing number 11.
It's weird.
It's like, it's subconscious. I don't consciously think about it, but my brain still goes back and says, this is odd.
When the time came to hire Bengal assistant coaches as your head coaches, the Vikings beat Washington in that category. Mike Zimmer over Jay Gruden.
Dallas covered. That's all I cared about.
Yeah, me too.
Comment below, like, favorite, and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next week with some more Turks and Jerks. It's our best and worst of the weekend. We'll see you then.